The quantum receiver hummed with an intensity that made the air itself feel charged. Dr. Elena Martinez knew something was different the moment the first fragments of the transmission began to coalesce. Her research station, nestled in the remote mountains of Chile, had intercepted countless cosmic signals before, but this was something else entirely. She hadn't planned on being here tonight. The Global Research Initiative had been running low on funding, and most of her colleagues had written off deep space quantum communication as a dying field of study. But Elena was different. Where others saw dead ends, she saw unexplored possibilities. The transmission arrived in pulses, fractal patterns of data that seemed to bend the very rules of information transfer. Each fragment carried an emotional weight that transcended traditional communication. It wasn't just a message. It was a cry that resonated at the fundamental frequency of desperation. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, layers of quantum decryption algorithms spinning to life. The station's AI, an adaptive system she had personally developed, began to piece together the impossible puzzle. Lines of code transformed into coherent language, then into something far more profound. "We are the Krell-Nay," the first clear segment read. "Our civilization approaches absolute termination." Elena leaned closer, her breath catching in her throat. Civilizational distress calls were rare, truly rare. In the decades of humanity's deep space listening efforts, they had intercepted perhaps 3 such transmissions. Each had been a haunting epitaph of a species on the brink of total extinction. But this was different. The data streams carried something beyond simple information. There were quantum-encoded emotional signatures that suggested a complexity far beyond standard communication protocols. The Krell-Nay weren't just sending a message. They were reaching out with the entire essence of their collective experience. Her tracking systems began mapping the transmission's origin. It came from beyond the Carina constellation, a region so distant that light would take millennia to traverse the space between them. The signal itself was a technological marvel. It had somehow managed to compress millennia of information into a transmission that would take mere moments to receive. Elena's mind raced. The Krell-Nay were a legendary civilization among xenorchivists, a species that had been exploring the cosmos for over 17,000 years. They were known for technological achievements that bordered on the miraculous. Their quantum computational capabilities were said to be generations beyond anything other known civilizations could comprehend. And now they were dying. The transmission continued to unfold. Fragments of their history, their technological infrastructure, and the nature of their systemic collapse began to emerge. It wasn't just a technological failure. It was a complete existential breakdown that threatened to erase everything they had ever been. "Our systems are collapsing," another segment revealed. "Fundamental quantum entanglement matrices are destabilizing. Our entire civilization is becoming unraveled." Elena's hands were shaking. This was beyond any scientific discovery she had ever encountered. This was a species essentially asking the universe for a miracle, a complete restoration of their entire existential framework. The research station's communication protocols would typically route such a transmission through multiple international scientific committees. There would be weeks of analysis, bureaucratic discussions, and carefully measured responses. But Elena knew they didn't have weeks. She looked at the blinking communication array, then at the cup of now-cold coffee sitting beside her. Something in the transmission had spoken to her, not just intellectually, but at a level that resonated with something deeper, a challenge, a possibility. The Krell-Nay needed more than a scientific team. They needed something humanity was uniquely capable of providing. They needed hope. The global scientific community erupted into controlled chaos within hours of Elena's initial report. Emergency sessions were convened across 3 continents, with holographic conferencing systems lighting up in research centers from Tokyo to Toronto, from Cape Town to Cambridge. Dr. Marcus Chen, head of the Interstellar Xenological Research Institute, studied the transmission data with a mixture of professional fascination and profound unease. The Krell-Nay archives were legendary, more myth than concrete historical record. Civilizations that had existed for 17,000 years didn't simply collapse. They evolved, adapted, transformed. Yet the data was irrefutable. "It's like watching a quantum computer commit suicide in slow motion," Marcus muttered, zooming into microscopic layers of the transmission. Each fragment was a universe of information, containing computational complexity that made human technological achievements look like child's play. The transmission revealed a civilization that had long transcended traditional technological boundaries. The Krellnay had mastered quantum entanglement to such a degree that their entire societal infrastructure functioned like a single massive living computational network. Their cities were not built, they were grown. Their technology was not manufactured, it was cultivated. And now that network was systematically destroying itself. Alina had been awake for 36 consecutive hours, subsisting on a diet of synthetic caffeine and pure intellectual adrenaline. Her team had begun preliminary analysis, creating complex simulation models that attempted to understand the Krellnay's systemic collapse. "It's not just a technological failure," she explained during an emergency global conference. Her holographic projection appeared simultaneously in research centers worldwide. "This is a complete existential breakdown. Imagine if every cell in a human body suddenly forgot its fundamental purpose and started attacking the entire organism." The metaphor was both simplistic and terrifyingly accurate. Preliminary data suggested that the Krellnay's quantum infrastructure had developed a kind of systematic self-destruction protocol. It was as if their entire technological framework had encountered an impossible logical paradox that was causing a cascading system failure. Dr. Aisha Okoye, a quantum systems theorist from the African Union's Advanced Research Collective, brought a different perspective. "This isn't just a technical problem," she argued. "This is a fundamental crisis of existence. The Krellnay have so completely merged their technological and biological systems that we're essentially looking at a species experiencing a civilization-wide existential breakdown." The implications were staggering. Most galactic species would have immediately classified this as a lost cause. The Krellnay had been considered the most advanced civilization in recorded cosmic history. If they couldn't save themselves, what hope was there? But humanity saw something different. Where others perceived a hopeless scenario, Alina and her team saw the most fascinating challenge ever presented to scientific understanding. The transmission wasn't just a cry for help. It was an invitation to reimagine the very concept of technological salvation. Marcus Chen understood this better than most. He had spent his entire career studying civilizational resilience, documenting how intelligent species responded to existential challenges. Humanity's unique strength had always been its capacity to approach problems from completely unexpected angles. "We're not just looking at a rescue mission," he told his closest colleagues during a private briefing. "We're looking at an opportunity to redefine what's possible in cosmic engineering." The research teams began assembling, not through traditional bureaucratic channels, but through an organic, almost intuitive network of collaboration. Quantum physicists worked alongside genetic engineers. Systems theorists collaborated with artists and philosophers. The boundaries between disciplines began to dissolve. The Krellnay needed more than a scientific solution. They needed a fundamental reimagining of their entire existential framework. And humanity was about to show them exactly what was possible. The team came together like a symphony of impossible possibilities. Alina knew they couldn't approach this challenge with traditional scientific methodology. They needed something more, a collective intelligence that defied standard academic boundaries. Dr. Kai Nakamura arrived first, a quantum physicist whose breakthrough work on harmonic resonance had revolutionized computational theory. He was also an accomplished jazz musician. His fingers, equally comfortable dancing across quantum interfaces and saxophone keys, represented exactly the kind of multidimensional thinking they would need. Next was Dr. Sofia Rodriguez, a genetic engineer who looked more like an adventure photographer than a traditional scientist. She had spent the last 5 years living with indigenous tribes in the Amazon, studying biological adaptation at its most fundamental level. Her research had challenged everything the scientific community understood about genetic plasticity and environmental resilience. Marcus Chen's final selection was perhaps the most unconventional. Dr. Imani Williams was a systems theorist who approached complex problems through an almost philosophical lens. She was also an extreme rock climber, someone who understood complex systems through the most intimate physical experience of adaptation and survival. The initial meeting wasn't held in a sterile conference room. Instead, they gathered in Alina's mountain research station, surrounded by adaptive quantum computing arrays and panoramic windows that looked out over the stark Andean landscape. "We're not just trying to save a civilization," Alina began, spreading the quantum-encoded transmission across a holographic display that filled the room. "We're attempting something that has never been done before in cosmic history." Kai studied the transmission's harmonic patterns, his musician's ear detecting subtle variations that pure computational analysis might miss. "These quantum signatures," he murmured, "they're not just data. They're almost like a composition, a deeply complex musical score that's simultaneously breaking down and trying to rebuild itself." Sophia leaned in, her fingers tracing genetic overlay patterns. Her experience with Amazon tribes had taught her that survival was never about rigid preservation, but about constant, dynamic adaptation. "The Krelnai aren't just facing a technological collapse," she observed. "This is a complete systemic metamorphosis. We can't repair. We'll need to help them rebuild from the most fundamental level." Himani was already mapping complex system interactions on a secondary display. Her rock climbing experience had taught her that the most seemingly impossible challenges could be approached through patient, strategic deconstruction. "We need to understand this not as a problem to be solved," she said, "but as a living system waiting to be reimagined." Marcus watched the interaction with a sense of profound hope. This was humanity's true strength, the ability to approach seemingly impossible challenges with a combination of intellectual rigor and creative imagination. The team worked differently from any scientific group that had come before. Their collaboration wasn't linear or hierarchical. It was organic, adaptive, with ideas flowing between them like a complex neural network. They didn't just share information, they created new understanding in real time. "We'll need to develop entirely new computational models," Kai suggested, his fingers already sketching quantum algorithms that seemed to dance between mathematical precision and musical improvisation. Sophia nodded. "Biological reconstruction protocols that can essentially reseed an entire civilization's genetic and technological infrastructure. And a systems framework," Imani added, "that treats the entire civilization as a living, evolving organism." Alina watched her team with a sense of absolute certainty. This wasn't just a rescue mission. This was an opportunity to redefine the very concept of civilizational survival. The Krelnay transmission continued to pulse in the background, a cosmic heartbeat waiting to be understood, waiting to be saved. Humanity was about to show the universe what was truly possible when intelligence, creativity, and hope converged. The first prototype emerged not from a laboratory, but from a moment of collective inspiration that defied traditional scientific boundaries. They had been working for 72 consecutive hours. The research station transformed into a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation. Holographic displays covered every surface, quantum algorithms danced like living entities, and the air itself seemed charged with potential. Kai was the first to see it. His fingers, moving between quantum interface and an ancient bamboo flute he sometimes played during moments of deep concentration, suddenly stopped. "We've been approaching this backwards," he said quietly. The team froze. When Kai spoke like this, with that particular tone that blended scientific precision with creative intuition, something extraordinary was about to happen. Sophia looked up from her genetic mapping, her eyes reflecting the intricate holographic projections. "Explain," she demanded. "The Krelnay transmission isn't just a distress signal," Kai continued. "It's a complex adaptive system trying to communicate its own fundamental breakdown. We can't repair it using traditional reconstruction protocols. We need to create a living intervention, Imani was already drawing complex system diagrams that looked more like abstract art than scientific notation. A complete systemic reboot, she murmured. Not just fixing individual components, but reimagining the entire civilizational infrastructure as a dynamic, adaptive organism. The prototype they developed was nothing like traditional technological solutions. It was part quantum computational network, part biological seed system, part philosophical framework. They were essentially creating a civilizational restoration technology that could learn, adapt, and evolve in real time. Elena understood the profound nature of their approach. Traditional rescue missions focused on preservation. Their solution was about transformation. We're not just saving the Krelnae, she explained to the Global Research Consortium during an emergency briefing. We're helping them become something entirely new. The nano-adaptive reconstruction units they designed were miracles of interdisciplinary engineering. Each unit was a complex ecosystem of quantum computing, genetic engineering, and adaptive learning protocols. They could restructure technological infrastructure, repair biological systems, and simultaneously learn from the process. Marcus Chen watched the development with a sense of profound wonder. Humanity had always been defined by its capacity to reimagine possibilities. Where other species saw boundaries, humans saw opportunities for radical transformation. The first full-scale simulation was both terrifying and beautiful. Complex quantum networks began to form, mimicking and then reimagining the Krelnae's fundamental technological infrastructure. Biological systems that had been approaching total collapse began to show signs of unprecedented regeneration. It's like we're teaching an entire civilization how to breathe again, Sophia observed, her fingers tracing the intricate regenerative patterns. Kai nodded. His understanding went beyond pure technical analysis. We're not just repairing, he said. We're helping them rediscover their potential for adaptation. The global scientific community watched in a mixture of amazement and skepticism. No civilization had ever attempted such a comprehensive restoration approach. They were essentially creating a technological intervention that was part rescue mission, part evolutionary catalyst. Imani's systems model suggested something even more profound. We're not just saving a civilization, she explained during a closed-door briefing. We're demonstrating an entirely new approach to civilizational resilience. This isn't about preservation. This is about potential. The prototype continued to evolve. Each computational cycle revealed new layers of complexity. The nano-adaptive units were learning, growing, transforming the very concept of technological restoration. The Krelnae's desperate transmission was becoming something else entirely. No longer a cry of extinction, it was transforming into a symphony of potential rebirth. Humanity was about to show the universe what true innovation looked like. First contact was nothing like anyone had anticipated. The quantum transmission arrived not with technical specifications or clinical data, but with a symphony of emotional complexity that left the entire research team breathless. It was as if the Krelnae civilization itself was speaking, not through language, but through a profound, multidimensional expression of collective consciousness. Elena's hands trembled as she managed the initial interface. The nano-adaptive reconstruction units began their delicate work, weaving through the most fundamental layers of Krelnae existence. Each computational cycle was like watching a living organism learn to breathe again. We're not just receiving a transmission, Kai murmured, his musical background allowing him to perceive nuances that pure computational analysis would miss. We're engaged in a conversation that transcends traditional communication. The emotional data was overwhelming. Layers of collective memory, cultural experience, and existential terror flowed through the quantum networks. The Krelnae weren't just sharing information, they were revealing the most intimate details of their civilizational experience. Sophia watched in amazement as the genetic reconstruction protocols began to take shape. The nano units weren't simply repairing biological systems, they were learning, adapting, creating entirely new frameworks of biological possibility. Look at this, she called out, highlighting a particularly complex genetic interaction. These reconstruction protocols are developing something beyond repair. They're creating new pathways of biological potential. Imani's systems models were working overtime, tracking the massive transformation happening across multiple dimensions of existence. We're witnessing a complete civilizational metamorphosis, she explained, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and profound wonder. The research station became a nexus of cosmic innovation. Holographic displays covered every surface, showing the intricate dance of reconstruction happening across unimaginable distances. Each moment revealed new layers of complexity. Marcus Chen understood the profound nature of what was happening. This was more than a rescue mission. This was a fundamental reimagining of what was possible in cosmic evolution. The Krellnay's initial terror began to transform. Where there had been absolute despair, new emotional signatures started to emerge. Curiosity, hope, a tentative sense of possibility that had been absent from their collective consciousness for generations. They're learning how to hope again, Elena observed, her voice barely a whisper. The reconstruction wasn't linear. It was a complex, adaptive process that defied traditional understanding. Technological systems that had been approaching total collapse began to show signs of unprecedented regeneration. Biological networks that had been degrading found new pathways of potential. Kai noticed something extraordinary happening in the quantum communication layers. The transmission was no longer a one-way cry for help. It was becoming a dialogue, a profound, multidimensional conversation that challenged everything understood about interspecies communication. "We're not just saving them," he said, tracing complex harmonic patterns that danced across the holographic displays. "We're helping them rediscover their own potential for adaptation." Sophia's genetic reconstruction protocols revealed even more profound transformations. The Krellnay weren't just being restored to their previous state. They were evolving, developing new capacities that had never existed in their previous civilization. Imani's systems model suggested something even more remarkable. "We're witnessing a complete civilizational reboot," she explained. "Not just a repair, but a total reimagining of what's possible." The research team worked with a sense of collective purpose that transcended individual achievement. They weren't just scientists. They were cosmic midwives, helping an entire civilization be reborn. As the reconstruction continued, something beautiful began to emerge. Where there had been only despair, a new kind of potential was taking shape, a testament to the extraordinary capacity for transformation. Humanity was rewriting the very concept of civilizational survival. The galactic observation networks watched in stunned silence. What was happening to the Krellnay defied every known principle of civilizational restoration. Multiple advanced species had monitoring systems trained on the unfolding event, expecting to witness nothing more than a final tragic dissolution of a once great civilization. Instead, they were watching something unprecedented. Dr. Elena Martinez stood at the center of a holographic storm, her team working with a synchronicity that bordered on collective consciousness. The nano-adaptive reconstruction units were no longer simply repairing. They were engaging in a profound dialogue with the Krellnay's fundamental existential framework. "It's like watching a civilization learn to dream again," Kai Nakamura observed, his fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that pulsed with living information. The communication patterns had transformed from desperate signals to something resembling a complex, multidimensional conversation. Sofia Rodriguez was tracking biological transformations that challenged every known principle of genetic engineering. The Krellnay weren't just being restored. They were developing entirely new capacities for adaptation. Biological systems that had been approaching total collapse were now generating unprecedented evolutionary pathways. "We're not just saving them," she explained during a private briefing with the Global Research Consortium. "We're helping them discover potential they never knew existed." Imani Williams' systems models revealed even more profound insights. The reconstruction was creating something beyond a simple restoration. It was a complete reimagining of civilizational potential. Where previous technological frameworks had been rigid and linear, new adaptive systems were emerging, flexible, responsive, almost alive. Marcus Chen understood the broader implications. This was more than a technological intervention. It was a demonstration of humanity's unique approach to problem-solving, a capacity to see potential where others saw only limitation. The galactic scientific community watched with a mixture of disbelief and growing wonder. Other advanced civilizations had sophisticated technological capabilities, but none had demonstrated the kind of adaptive thinking humanity was now showcasing. Quantum communication networks began to reveal something extraordinary. The Krell weren't just being passively restored. They were actively participating in their own transformation. Emotional signatures that had been compressed by generations of systemic failure began to expand, to breathe, to explore new dimensions of possibility. "They're learning how to hope," Alina murmured, watching complex emotional patterns dance across the holographic displays. The reconstruction process defied traditional understanding. It wasn't about returning the Krell to their previous state. It was about helping them discover an entirely new way of existing. Technological systems that had been approaching total collapse were now generating new forms of adaptive intelligence. Kai noticed something particularly fascinating in the quantum communication layers. The transmission was developing harmonic complexity that resembled musical composition, where there had been only static and desperation. Now there were patterns of incredible nuance and depth. "We're teaching them how to listen," he said, tracing intricate resonance patterns, not just to external signals, but to their own potential. Sophia's genetic reconstruction protocols revealed even more remarkable transformations. Biological systems were developing adaptive capabilities that went far beyond simple restoration. The Krell were generating entirely new evolutionary pathways, new ways of understanding their own existence. Imani's systems model suggested something profound. "This isn't just a rescue," she explained. "This is a complete civilizational reboot. We're helping them reimagine what's possible." The research team worked with a sense of collective purpose that transcended individual achievement. They weren't just scientists. They were cosmic architects, helping an entire civilization rediscover its potential for transformation. As the reconstruction continued, something beautiful emerged. Where there had been only darkness and despair, a new kind of potential was taking shape, a living testament to the extraordinary capacity for renewal. Humanity was rewriting the very concept of civilizational survival. The first direct communication arrived like a symphony of possibility. Where previous transmissions had been fragmented and desperate, this quantum-encoded message carried something entirely new, a profound sense of awakening. The Krell were no longer simply responding to their impending extinction. They were engaging in a dialogue that challenged everything known about interspecies communication. Dr. Elena Martinez watched the holographic displays with a sense of breathless anticipation. The communication wasn't just a message. It was a living, evolving conversation that seemed to breathe with its own intelligence. "We are becoming." The transmission began, a phrase that defied traditional linguistic interpretation. Kai Nakamura, his musician's ear detecting subtle harmonic variations, leaned forward. "It's like they're learning a new language," he observed. "Not just words, but entire modes of understanding." The global scientific community gathered in virtual conference spaces, watching the unprecedented interaction unfold. This was more than first contact. This was a fundamental reimagining of communication itself. Sofia Rodriguez tracked the biological implications. The Krell's communication patterns were revealing something extraordinary about adaptive intelligence. Their method of expression was simultaneously technological, biological, and something that transcended traditional categorization. "They're not just communicating," she explained to her colleagues. "They're demonstrating an entirely new form of collective consciousness." Imani Williams' systems models captured the profound transformation. The Krell were developing communication capabilities that merged technological infrastructure, biological networks, and something that resembled collective emotional intelligence. Marcus Chen understood the broader implications. Humanity had done more than save a civilization. They had demonstrated a completely new approach to interspecies understanding. The transmission continued to unfold, revealing layers of complexity that left the research team breathless. The Krellnae were sharing not just information, but entire frameworks of understanding. Cultural memories, technological insights, philosophical perspectives, all intertwined in a quantum-encoded narrative that defied traditional communication methods. "We have been limited," one segment of the transmission revealed. "Your intervention has shown us the possibility of becoming." Elena recognized the profound nature of this statement. It wasn't an expression of gratitude. It was a fundamental revelation about the nature of existence itself. Kai noticed the transmission's harmonic complexity. "Listen to this," he said, highlighting intricate quantum signature patterns. "They're not just communicating. They're creating a new form of collective expression." The communication revealed the depth of the Krellnae's transformation. Their previous civilization had been characterized by rigid technological frameworks and a deeply hierarchical understanding of existence. Now they were developing something entirely new, a fluid, adaptive approach to understanding themselves and the universe. Sophia's genetic analysis showed remarkable changes. The Krellnae were developing communication capabilities that merged biological potential with technological innovation. Their very method of understanding was becoming something dynamic, responsive, alive. "We are learning to dream," another transmission segment revealed, "not as individuals, not as a collective, but as a living possibility." Imani's systems models captured the profound philosophical implications. The Krellnae were developing an approach to existence that merged individual potential with collective understanding in ways no known civilization had ever achieved. The research team worked with a sense of collective wonder. They weren't just witnessing a civilizational restoration. They were observing the birth of an entirely new way of being. Marcus Chen understood the broader cosmic significance. Humanity had demonstrated something profound. The capacity to see potential where others saw only limitation. The ability to transform despair into possibility. As the communication continued to unfold, something beautiful emerged. The Krellnae were no longer a civilization on the brink of extinction. They were becoming something unprecedented, a living testament to the extraordinary capacity for transformation. Humanity had rewritten the very concept of civilizational survival. The final stages of transformation defied every known principle of civilizational evolution. Galactic observation networks, initially established to document what was expected to be a tragic extinction, found themselves witnessing something unprecedented. The Krellnae were no longer just surviving. They were becoming a living testament to the extraordinary potential of adaptive intelligence. Dr. Elena Martinez stood at the epicenter of this cosmic rebirth, her team having transformed from rescuers to something more akin to cosmic midwives. The nano-adaptive reconstruction units had completed their primary intervention, but the real miracle was just beginning. "We're not just observing a restoration," Elena explained during the final global conference. "We're witnessing the birth of an entirely new form of collective existence." Kai Nakamura's quantum communication analysis revealed layers of complexity that challenged everything understood about interspecies interaction. The Krellnae's method of communication had become a living, breathing entity, part technological network, part collective consciousness, part something entirely unclassifiable. Sofia Rodriguez's genetic analysis showed transformations that went far beyond simple biological restoration. The Krellnae were developing adaptive capabilities that merged technological infrastructure with biological potential in ways no civilization had ever imagined. "They're not just surviving," she marveled. "They're reimagining the very concept of existence." Imani Williams' systems models captured the profound philosophical implications. The Krellnae had developed a way of understanding that transcended individual and collective boundaries. Their existence was becoming a dynamic, fluid process of continuous transformation. Marcus Chen understood the broader cosmic significance. Humanity had demonstrated something profound. The capacity to see potential where others saw only limitation. The final transmission from the Krellnae arrived not as a message, but as a complex quantum-encoded experience that defied traditional communication methods. It was simultaneously a thank you, a revelation, and an invitation to something beyond understanding. We have become the possibility of becoming. The transmission revealed, a phrase that would be studied by philosophers and scientists for generations. The transformation was complete, yet ongoing. The Krellnae were no longer a civilization in the traditional sense. They had become a living, adaptive network of potential, constantly evolving, constantly reimagining themselves. Kai noticed the transmission's extraordinary harmonic complexity. "Listen to this," he said, highlighting intricate quantum signature patterns that danced like living music. "They're creating an entirely new language of existence." The global scientific community struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. This was more than a successful rescue mission. This was a fundamental reimagining of what was possible in cosmic evolution. Sophia's continued analysis revealed ongoing transformations. The Krellnae were developing communication and adaptive capabilities that merged technological innovation, biological potential, and something that bordered on pure creativity. "We are not what we were," another transmission segment revealed. "We are not what we will become. We are the process of becoming." Imani's systems model suggested that the Krellnae had developed a way of existing that was simultaneously individual and collective, technological and biological, definable, and yet completely beyond definition. The research team reflected on their journey. They had begun with a desperate transmission, a civilization on the brink of total extinction. Now they had helped birth something unprecedented. A living network of potential that challenged every known principle of existence. Elena understood the profound nature of their achievement. Humanity had demonstrated something extraordinary, the capacity to see potential where others saw only limitation, the ability to transform despair into possibility. As the final reconstruction protocols completed, something beautiful emerged. The Krellnae were no longer a civilization that had been saved. They had become a living testament to the extraordinary capacity for transformation, a beacon of possibility in the vast cosmic darkness. Humanity had rewritten the very concept of civilizational survival.